If you know anything and care about history, and you're one of those people that think history repeats itself, since 1971, when the Federal Reserve drops interest rates for the first cut after raising rates, historically, the stock market will drop by an average of 20% in the next 3 to 18 months after the Fed cuts rates for the first time after raising. So the Fed over the past couple of years has done nothing but raise rates. So they just made their first cut. So if history repeats itself, I'm not saying it will, but if it does, we're looking at a 20% economic drop in the stock market in the next 3 months to year and a half, 3 to 18 months. There's going to be opportunities.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
What's up, everybody? Yes, it is Shawn Rider again. I'm going to be riding solo today, being a solopreneur on this podcast. It's going to be a good time. I think I have a good topic for the day. One thing that I like to do is look at what the men in the inner circle are doing, find the questions that they have, and find the answers that not only Jeff and I, but the other really intelligent, really high achieving, smart men in the group are telling them based on the questions that the men in the inner circle ask. And today, an hour before I recorded this podcast, we had a great post in the inner circle. And it came from a member who built a business, sold his share to a partner, and has been building the life of his dreams, helping other business owners for active income, but also making investments with his money outside of that. But he's always had the itch to get back into the industry that he had left when he sold his portion of his business and moved his family to a whole nother state. So he's not currently living in the city in which he sold his first business in. Now, this question and these answers are going to be relevant no matter what your industry is in. But this man, was in the fitness industry. He built a gym that was producing over $1 million a year in revenue, sold his half of the business, and moved his family to a whole nother state. They're creating a little homestead, got a big old garden. It's fantastic. But he's had that itch to get back into the fitness industry locally in the new town that they own. So his question, this is something that he brought up a few months back and kind of put the brakes on, but apparently he still has the itch. So here we go. He said, question for the group. I am still debating buying a local yoga studio. So that's interesting because he didn't own a yoga studio, right? But again, principles of business. Doesn't matter if it's the same industry. This is the same industry. It's fitness, but it doesn't matter if it's the same industry. The principles of business, especially small business, holds true. So I'm excited to see that he's interested in buying a yoga studio. He said, I'm still debating buying a yoga studio. The numbers are good and it has a solid ROI at current numbers. The owner is only asking for $30,000 and had $60,000 in profit last year. So it's a solid deal. Okay. He said, I have to make the decision on how to fund the $30,000. She offered seller financing. So what should I do? I have a good instinct, but would love some from the group. A, she would seller finance at 6% over 12 months, $0 down. And that's roughly just shy of $2,600 a month. B, use his life insurance policies, borrow against those. He's got a good amount to use there, and the interest rate on a life insurance loan is 5.28%. So that interest rate is lower than the seller financing. And then he can pay back that loan on his own terms. And lastly, C, of course, he could use cash. It's an option, and he does note that it's probably not one that he would use. Okay, so the listeners here, they may know what the best option is. But when I look at all the comments, I feel really proud of the men in the group because everyone answered the same thing. In this scenario and most other scenarios, when you're buying a business, the answer is A, seller financing. Okay, there's a few reasons why. The reason why you want to buy a business, especially with the seller carrying the note, is one, it keeps your powder dry. Yes, you want to hold on to your cash. Yes, kudos to this man in the inner circle. He's followed our 7 levels of financial freedom, and he's created his own family banking system via high early cash value life insurance. And the life insurance is there to buy assets, cash flowing assets, real estate businesses. So, at first glance, people would be like, well, that's why I created my bank. I can borrow against it and I can make my own payments on my term. The interest rate is fair. It's lower than market. That's great. But what's better than that is not touching your life insurance money for this option, because the seller is willing to carry the note. So the goal here is to have this gentleman have none of his own money in the deal on day one. He's going to be able to acquire the asset and immediately use his skills and his knowledge to make that asset more efficient and more profitable. The cool thing is that with nothing else changing, right? Of course, things can happen. With nothing else changing, the $60,000 in profit, if that holds true, if nothing else changes, then that $60,000 in profit will service the $2,600 a month debt payment. That'd be what? 31, 32 grand a year. So he's immediately buying $28,000 of profit after the debt service using $0 of his own money. So what is the return on investment if I paid $0 and I get 28 grand in the next 12 months? It's better than the stock market, isn't it? Certainly better than his life insurance policies too. So we can argue all that. Of course, this is not going to just be easy money, right? He actually has to do some work. Okay. So the return on his time, right? If he has to put in 100 hours a week to earn 28 grand, of course, that's not the goal. But the question revolved around how to finance the purchase. So the answer is you want seller financing. Kudos to the men in the group, because one thing that they acknowledged was that with seller financing, it keeps the seller to have a little bit more skin in the game, right? Because they're going to be financing the purchase of the business, most likely through the cash flow of the business. They want the business to be successful so this person can afford to make that payment. Okay. Smart. So one thing that you probably want to try and roll in, depending on the exact details of this, again, we're going to keep this more broad stroke and not get into the nitty gritty of this business. But when there's seller financing involved, if the seller, especially if the seller is involved in the day-to-day of servicing clients, running the business, or they have an icon problem, okay? Maybe they're not the one doing all the servicing, right? But they do, people know who they are, right? They're involved. You don't only want them to carry the note just so they can verbally say, hey, we sold this business, it'll be great, stay. What you're going to try and roll in there is they need to be a part of the transition period, 90 to 180 days. You want them involved. You want them training who you're going to have fill in. Ideally, if you're not the person buying the business and then just buying yourself a job and getting involved, that's definitely not what this gentleman's trying to do. He's just trying to use his knowledge and skill sets to grow this business. Okay. You want the seller to carry the note, and you want them involved in the transition of this business. Sounds like a great deal. Have the seller carry the note. Keep your life insurance money dry. That way you can buy this asset for $0 out of pocket and then go buy another asset with the financial tool of your infinite banking policy. If you have cash outside of the infinite banking policy, which it seems like this gentleman is, that's the last thing you want to touch, because cash is king. We are recording in mid-September of 2024. We are 45 days away or whatever it is from an election. No one knows what the heck is going to happen between now and the start of 2025. The Federal Reserve just dropped interest rates for the first time in a long time. If you know anything and care about history, and you're one of those people that think history repeats itself, since 1971, when the Federal Reserve drops interest rates for the first cut after raising rates, historically, the stock market will drop by an average of 20% in the next 3 to 18 months after the Fed cuts rates for the first time after raising them. So the Fed over the past couple of years has done nothing but raise rates. So they just made their first cut. So if history repeats itself, I'm not saying it will, but if it does, we're looking at a 20% economic drop in the stock market in the next 3 months to year and a half, 3 to 18 months. There's going to be opportunities. There's going to be opportunities for this gentleman to buy maybe another yoga studio in town. Imagine if he could buy 2 yoga studios and one of them is big enough to house all the clients. What if both of those owners carry the note? What if he can do that and then has the potential to buy a building to merge those 2 businesses in? Now he can use his life insurance loans or cash to buy a building, acquire an asset, and he owns a business. He owns 2 businesses, turns them into one. Who knows? Who knows how this is going to play out? But while everyone else is worrying about what's going to happen, they're trying to get out of the game. We're trying to get in the game. You've possibly heard that we are just now starting the greatest transition of wealth in the history of the United States. The baby boomers are retiring and they're going to die off. And they own the majority of assets in this country. They own businesses, they own real estate, paid off real estate, and they have a lot of money in the stock market. When they die, that money's going to change hands and it's going to go to the next generation. A lot of those baby boomers have worked really hard, 30, 40 years, built businesses, and they are of the mindset. They just basically want a pension. They will sell their businesses with seller financing. They will carry the note because all they need, it's the great thing about this generation, they don't live on much, right? I want people to increase their lifestyle as they've built their businesses and come into more money. But that generation, a lot of them don't do that. So when they have a paid off house and they live frugally and they barely take a vacation, they just like sitting watching Prices Right during the day, whatever it is, they just want $1,500 a month. They want $2,500 a month. They want $3,500 a month. When their business is doing $300,000 a year in profit, they'll carry the note. 2% down, 5% down, 10% down. And all they want is that monthly payment. That monthly payment is $2,000 over what they need to survive. They'd be happy campers. Don't look at what may happen negatively in the coming months. Look at what's about to happen. Put out into the universe what it is that you want. If you're an electrician, if you have a skill, if you like cutting lawns, but you work a crappy 9 to 5 at the agency downtown, but you know a couple of the people that own lawnmower businesses, they're burnt out, man. Business owners are burnt out. It doesn't mean the burnout ones are going to get out of the game, but some of them will. Some of them will. If you have passion, if you have desire, if you have the wherewithal, if you have the potential fortitude to take over, and they have the desire to hold the note, seller financing is the way to go. So kudos to this guy in the inner circle for, one, finding the deal, asking the question, and getting it done. Kudos to the rest of the men in the group for knowing what the correct answer was. Always seller financing. As always, guys, follow Jeff on Instagram at @TheRealJeffSmith. Follow me on Instagram at Shawn_Rider_. Get on our new Instagram account at The Tactical Empire. Get on Facebook. Follow our free Facebook group, The Tactical Empire Community. If you've been listening to our episodes and you're ready to invest in your personal development and learn how to build financial freedom, how to be a better man, better husband, better father, and make a metric F ton of money along the way. It's what we do. It's what we help people with. It's what the men in the circle are great at doing. It's not just about Jeff and I. These men learn from each other. It's a group of like-minded men. We'd love to have you. reach out, invest in yourself. Let's get in the group. We appreciate you. Keep checking in.